Over the past few weeks, I haven't done a proper video giving an update about James Gunn, Zack Snyder, and DC because while I felt that there were a lot of minor developments, it just didn't seem like there was some big story that really required everybody's attention, especially around the time of the holidays. And the truth is, as long as this whole potential merger between Paramount and Warner Brothers, or Netflix and Warner Brothers, is still being contested in a very ugly public war that may very well end up in court, it's really hard to evaluate exactly how it's going to affect the DC brand in the long term. With that being said, I think that with the events of the last 48 hours and other things that have happened in recent weeks, it is a good time to give you my overall analysis of the situation. But before we dive in, if you're new to my channel, I was the first to correctly declare Superman a box office flop and also the first to accurately report that James Gunn had effectively been demoted at Warner Brothers following the underperformance of Superman at the box office, which is why he pivoted to only work on the Superman saga rather than his whole Phase 1 Gods and Monsters as he had initially planned. And if you want to stay ahead of the news and receive these type of exclusive reports, please make sure to like and subscribe, as it would really help support an independent entertainment news reporter like myself.
Do it.
I really think that James Gunn has gone through something of a process over the past half year. As long as Gunn was working on projects that hadn't yet been released, he could still walk around with a lot of confidence, making a lot of audacious and bold decisions, firing people, hiring people, announcing projects, and somehow getting away with it all. The problem is that once Superman got released and didn't make between $800 million to $1 billion at the box office, which is what Warner Brothers had expected of him, the amount of control that he got over DC started to diminish, and in spite of what the regular mainstream media outlets will tell you, Matt Reeves getting his second Batman movie rather than James Gunn's DCU Batman, which had already been announced, was clearly a sign that the top brass at Warner Brothers had more faith in Matt Reeves than they did in Gunn, thinking that Reeves is the one that could produce things for them that'll make more money and be more prestigious, like his Batman movie, which made more than Superman, and his Penguin series, which got them a whole bunch of awards that they were very happy with. And while I think that James Gunn will certainly wrap up the productions that he's working on, like Lanterns, a troubled show undergoing reshoots right now, and the Supergirl movie, which has some of the phoniest artificial manufactured buzz I've seen in a long time surrounding it, things aren't looking that great for James Gunn. But there's one thing, as I've stated before on this channel, that's working in his favor, that between all the mergers and all the political mess behind the scenes, he's somehow been able to benefit from that, in that I think that if nothing else, he's going to be able to complete his Man of Tomorrow movie, and I don't think that that's changed, at least not yet. But I believe that no matter what happens with Warner Brothers, whether it's Netflix taking over or Paramount, I still think that James Gunn's time as co-CEO of DC is limited, which is probably why Gunn himself recently said in an interview that doing what he's doing now probably is not sustainable long term, and based on that and other statements we've seen him make in recent months, I think that he's aware that there are no guarantees that he's going to be there beyond these few projects that he's working on. One of the things that I've mentioned here before, and this goes hand in hand with the article of Cosmic Book News that they initially reported on this, is that if Paramount takes over Warner Brothers, I think that they're going to expedite Gunn's departure, whereas with Netflix, they'll at least let him stay his contract, which has been extended till spring of 2027. But I did find it very telling that recently, in an interview, Ted Sarandos, Netflix's CEO, only mentioned how much he liked Matt Reeves and Penguin without ever even talking about James Gunn when it came to the DC brand, and I don't think that's a good sign. In addition, Netflix and Warner Brothers recently released some marketing material where they showed different projects and IPs that they're both going to be working on together, and interestingly, there were thumbnails for Zack Snyder's DCEU, there were thumbnails for Matt Reeves' movie, but there was no sign of anything James Gunn related, such as Superman or Peacemaker, which gives me the feeling that perhaps Netflix isn't super excited about what James Gunn is doing, and they may not want to continue with him either, which is probably why he keeps running to newspapers and to shills online for them to interview him and trying to produce all this positive spin surrounding him, not to mention building this kind of imaginary hype surrounding Supergirl, which is looking like it's gonna likely be something of a box office disappointment, perhaps even more than Superman. And at the same time, and I've been saying this for a while, Zack Snyder is in a very good position, because really he has nothing to lose. He can sit there and post all these photos on his Instagram, and every time he posts them, he creates more buzz for his brand. Meanwhile, he's traveling, he's hanging out with Saudis that are investing in the Paramount deal, should it go through, continuing to strengthen his political relationships. And yes, I do believe that if Paramount managed to secure the deal, it will open the door for Snyder's return. He knows it too. Now, I want to make it clear, it doesn't mean that tomorrow morning Snyder is there with a camera already filming anything concrete, because some channels I look at, they really promise that, and I wouldn't do that. This is still very much an up-in-the-air situation, but if nothing else, I think that Snyder is handling this all very well politically, very methodical in the way he's sharing the photos. Recently, another Henry Cavill post as Superman, saying that this is his world. One thing that did recently happen that people weren't really talking about that I found rather interesting was that Zack Snyder and James Gunn seemingly created an Instagram post together, a joint post in which they showed how years ago they worked together on Dawn of the Dead, and how they're seemingly friends and courteous towards each other. But as I've mentioned before on this channel, while I'm sure there's some professional courtesy between them, I don't think that they're actually the good friends that we're often told by the media. When they did that whole Rick and Morty thing, that they seemingly were working together on that program, and then we saw pictures of them hanging out, that was a very coordinated PR effort driven by Warner, who own Rick and Morty, and that's why the voices that they did and the photo opportunity all came in the same day. They're not sitting around hanging out with each other all day, or even posting things together. It's not organic. So the question is, why did they do a joint post? And this is where things get a little bit interesting. Now, in the case of Rick and Morty, what I claim is that Warner Brothers are the ones that asked Zack Snyder to be a good sport at the time, because people were still talking about his DCEU, and I think that Warner Brothers were genuinely worried about how James Gunn's Superman was tracking, and they wanted to squash some of the animosity between Snyder fans and James Gunn. And when it comes to Zack Snyder, I can totally understand why he went along with it, because if you think about it, all the movies that Snyder has made for Warner Brothers still make money for Warner Brothers and for Snyder himself. Not only does Snyder expect Warner Brothers to promote his movies on their HBO Max streaming service, not only does he expect them to distribute it to other services and worldwide, he also gets a quarterly payment every 3 months with a significant amount of money as an executive producer of all these movies. So when you're doing that kind of business with a lot of big money involved, sometimes it's better to be the bigger man and to say, yeah, of course, I'll be a good sport, no problem. And I think that that's what happened with this new joint post that they did together. Probably James Gunn, feeling the heat from all the enthusiasm people have over Zack Snyder's post, said, can we maybe do something together to show that we're courteous towards each other? And Zack Snyder may have just gone along with it. I really don't think that Zack Snyder got up in the morning and said, oh, I gotta post now and say how great James Gunn is. I feel like this was something that it was a request, and showing that he's taking the high road, I think that he agreed to do it. And what's very telling is that James Gunn himself probably really lobbied for it, and the question is why. And this is where I think something interesting is happening. I wonder to myself if perhaps James Gunn isn't laying the groundwork for a scenario where he'll somehow seemingly green light a Zack Snyder quote-unquote Elseworlds movie, and even if Netflix takes it over, there's still a path for perhaps Snyder to do something there. I don't know this for certain. All I know is that Netflix's CEO doesn't seem excited about James Gunn. James Gunn seems stressed, and I think that the joint post wasn't organic, so that was something that occurred to me. But in reality now, everything is still very much in limbo, and the more limbo there is, I do think that James Gunn benefits not long term, but to an extent. And right now we have a situation where Paramount have sued Warner Brothers over the past day or so, claiming that the whole process of how they accepted bids from Netflix wasn't legitimate, and that they had the better deal that they were offering. They're also considering some type of proxy war, where they lobby for certain people that they want on the board of directors of Warner Brothers, which could be another headache for Warner Brothers. Meanwhile, Netflix stock is really getting hurt by all the stuff that's going on with Paramount, and with Netflix under pressure from their own investors, now they're supposedly considering making an all-cash bid, maybe even increasing their offer, so this whole thing is getting really heated up. And what's even more interesting is that Donald Trump, who's been mostly quiet about what he plans to do with this merger, in recent days reposted an article written by a lawyer called John M. Pierce for One America News, and in his article, he's basically saying that allowing Netflix to absorb Warner Brothers is going to give them a lot of power to push what he considers a woke agenda into all of their big IPs more than ever before. And the fact that Trump has shared this article, it's showing, I think, that he's not too keen on this deal. Now, I'm pretty sure that Trump probably hoped that this thing would all happen organically, that Paramount would just take over Netflix and that he wouldn't need to get involved. And even though he seemed rather neutral until now, I do think it's very interesting timing that he shared this article at the same time that Paramount filed their lawsuit. But again, at the end of the day, everything in my opinion is still in limbo. I continue to think that Zack Snyder has a chance of returning in some capacity, whether it's Paramount or even Netflix. And since I don't know which one of them are going to take over, if I had to give my estimate, I'd say there's probably a 60% chance that he can return. But it's not a done deal, and I'm going to continue to monitor the situation, and obviously I'll make videos, but like I said, there's no point in making a video every time Zack Snyder posts a photo, or when James Gunn says something stupid, because then I would just be making 50 videos a day if that were the case, and I think that I want to treat the people that watch this channel with more respect. But if you enjoy the type of integrity that I present here, please make sure to like and subscribe, as it would really mean a lot to me. Thanks for watching, my friends. Thank you, and good day.
I'm such an awesome guy.